Hello viewers, welcome once again to our ongoing series of Mendelism and beyond. In my last lecture, I had tried to summarize and go along with you the entire path which led to the discovery of the concept of linkage and of course by default crossing over. And we also learned about as to why do we have the rationale for being like our parents and yet different. In this particular series, we have tried to justify the genetical concepts which emerged after Mendelism. In our lecture, which is the second part of crossing over, let us look at some of the cytological evidences, because what Professor Morgan had actually performed in terms of his experiments was the test cross ratios, and he assumed that this would lead to linkage, complete and incomplete both, as well as crossing over. But then that was not enough. One needed a microscopic evidence to this whole story. And how did it come along? We would now trace the path. Let us first begin with some of the characteristics of crossing over and find out as to what is the significance of this process. The first characteristic of crossing over seems to be that it is going to occur at two gross levels. Whether if it is taking place at the chromosomal level, which we can see also by certain specialized techniques of cytology, then it is called as crossing over. If we are going to talk in terms of the modern terminology at the DNA level, then it would be called as genetic recombination, where there will be various types of enzymes which would recombinases, for example, which are going to make and break, that is copy and paste the different nucleotides at certain places, at certain nicks, and we can have now a whole lot of different markers at the DNA level which are going to be responsible for showing us how genetic recombination has taken place. The second characteristic of crossing over happens to be that it is a reciprocal exchange between the the fragments of homologous chromosomes, and it is also reflected in the future generations. Thirdly, we find that crossing over takes place between non-sister chromatids by a mechanism which is break and exchange. And you must have read in your textbooks a whole lot of different types of theories and models which have been presented as far as this break and exchange process of the chromosomal fragments is concerned. Since it pertains to the realm of cell biology, we would not be spending more time on that aspect. We are looking at the genetical aspects. So therefore, we as I said in the earlier lecture, the frequency of crossing over somehow appears to be very closely related to the physical distance between genes on chromosomes, and this is what serves as a tool in constructing the genetic maps of chromosomes. You remember, it was the illustrious student of T.H. Morgan, Sturtevant, Alfred Sturtevant, who made the first linkage map. We will spend some time later on such maps. Now, the crossing over could be either in somatic cells or in the mitotic cells. If it is going to take place in the somatic cells of the body, I mean, how does it really matter to the next individual? Because these cells are not going to be inherited to the next generation. So that means during the mitotic cycle, if this type of a aberration takes place, it is of no consequence to genetics, because it is not going to go into the next generation. it is rare, but it is there. So that means genetical significance is not there, but cytological evidences are interesting, and it has been found also in Drosophila, the body cells or the somatic cells by Kurt Stern, and also in the fungus Aspergillus nudulans by Professor Pontecorvo. The crossing over at the germinal or the meiotic level is the one which interests us, because this is going to take place in the germinal cells and during the meiotic cell division, and this meiotic crossing over seems to be universal, and it is this particular germinal or meiotic crossing over which is of great genetic consequence. This is one aspect where we have to now go in the logistics of crossing over as to how many times crossing over is taking place, between which and which of the non-sister chromatids it is taking place, and that would be of genetical consequence as to what would be the order of genes on a chromosome and how far would they be located. So, we can also classify crossing over on the basis of the chiasma, that is the crossover points which are present. It could be in the form of single crossing over. Single crossing over would mean that there is only one chiasma, that is the crossover point at only one point of the chromosomal pair. As you can see on the screens, that one type of chiasma which constitutes the single crossing over is going to produce two crossover chromatids and two non-crossover chromatids. So, that means crossing over, as you can see on your screens, is taking place between the two non-sister chromatids. I never said that it is taking place between two chromosomes. So, ultimately you have to be very firm with the idea that crossing over takes place between chromatids and not between the chromosomes. And now you will have an equal proportion of parental and the recombinant combinations. We could also have a double crossing over. Now, at this point we will have, say, two crossing overs at two different points, and the formation of each chiasma is going to be independent, and there are so many different classes of this recombination, that is the double crossing over. We would find that in one of the very interesting cases, in whatever is lost is regained. That is, in this type of a double crossover, which is called as the two strand crossover, A plus was initially going to the other chromosome, and it came back because there was a second crossover. So, ultimately this double crossover or a two strand is not going to result in any genetic variation at all. So, in the final analysis we would get all parental combinations. There are other double stranded single crossing over, double stranded double crossing over, and they may give rise to different types of genetic variants. There could even be a three stranded double cross, where all the three chromatids except one are involved in crossing over at 2 points. Or then it could be a four stranded double crossing over, where all the four chromatids are engaged in chiasmata formation at two different points. And finally, there could be a multiple crossing over, that is where more than two places we would find that the chromosomes or their chromatids have exchanged their fragments. And although multiple crossing over is rare, but then it does take place. On your screens you can see a summary chart of different types of crossing overs which occur and the kind of genetic variations and the different types of chromosomes that they produce. Now, in my entire discussion till now, I have used the term chiasmata many times. So, what are chiasmata? As I simply refer to them as the crossover points, but basically they are the microscopically visible manifestations of crossovers. and when these duplicated homologous chromosomes in meiosis, they are going to pair with each other, and we have synapses, and then the formation of the synaptonemal complex. And when this exchange between the fragments has taken place, and at the onset of the phase of repulsion, we would find that there is a cross shaped structure which is called as a chiasma, the plural being chiasmata. It is going to be often formed between the two non-sister chromatids. On your screens, learners, you can see how a chiasma is being located between the two homologous chromosomes and between the two non-sister chromatids, and this would be a crossover point. In this picture, you can see two chiasmata occurring, and a picture which is also depicting the two crossover points would ultimately result in a breakage and reunion. These are the points, and further in meiosis 1 you would find, as you have learned in your textbooks, the terminalization of the chiasmata, ultimately leading to the separation of these recombined chromatids. And if separation does not take place, then we have whole lot of chromosomal aberrations. So that means a type of an exchange of genes is manifested through these crossover points. So the when the chiasmata were to be seen by Morgan, now naturally this visual observation corroborated very well with the concepts of crossing over, and we find that the chiasmata somehow seem to indicate that the chromatids in fact are the ones which are going to participate in a crossover and not the unduplicated chromosomes. So this led further cytological proof. But then what was the cytological proof? That crossing over actually is a process which involves breakage and rejoining of the chromosomal fragments. So that means one really needed a microscopic evidence to this effect, and some beautiful experiments and very elegant experiments were performed by Crichton and Barbara McClintock. I may hurriedly mention, viewers, Barbara McClintock has been nicknamed as Lady Mendel because she was the one who very early in her career talked about the jumping genes, which were ridiculed in the beginning, but later they turned out to be the transposons, and it was a case of very belated recognition of her work. She got a Nobel Prize a little before her demise. So that means by virtue of belated recognition, Barbara McClintock is nicknamed as Lady Mendel, and she was working along with Harriet Crichton on ZIA-mase, and the chromosome number in ZIA-mase happens to be 2n is equal to 10, and this experiment gave a very conclusive evidence that there is a definite correlation between the actual physical exchange among the homologous chromosomes and the recombination between the genes that these particular fragments are carrying. These two workers had a basic premise. They were looking at the chromosome number 9, and they found that these two genes that they were interested in were actually located on chromosome number 9. One of them was seed color, designated as capital C for color and small c for colorless, and the other was what was the composition of the endosperm, whether it was waxy or whether it was starchy. As we can find out from the data, capital WX seems to be, waxy seems to be the dominant one. Now, one of the plants had a very peculiar structure, that is the chromosome number 9, which was carrying the alleles capital C and WX, was very unusual. What was the peculiarity? This particular chromosome had a knob, that is a large heterochromatic area at one terminal, which is very near to the location of capital C gene, and it was also found that there was a very long piece which was being extended from the chromosome near the capital WX. Now, this was a very unusual situation, because how to derive homology? The two chromosomes, the two homologous chromosomes should be at least equal in size, but then the heterozygote which you can see on your screens was a very peculiar one. The normal chromosome had small c and small wx. So, these two genes were marked, and Crichton and McClintock, they performed the following test cross. As you can see on your screens, this 9th chromosome with capital C and WX, that is with colored and with the starchy endosperm, was now seen, it was visualized, and then it was test crossed. It was found that the new allele combinations which were got were now compared, and it was found that all the recombinants, they inherited one or the other of the following chromosomes depending upon their recombinant makeup. If you were to look at your screens, and if we are having this type of a constitution of the knob, this was there was a chromosome which was now seen, which had a knob, but which had a capital C, and the WX was now small. On the other hand, there was the chromosome with an extension, all right, but no knob. So, how could this have happened if there was no breakage or reunion? So, that means the evidence was there that the capital C, capital WX recombines, and the recombinants which are going to carry a chromosome will have one of the abnormal cytological markers. If we were to just summarize Crichton and McClintock's experiments, we find that all type of combinations could be got in the progeny of the test cross. So, this clearly indicated that knob could go to the other chromosome, and the extension of the chromosome could also go to the other chromosome. So, these findings very strongly argued that recombination was actually caused by a physical exchange between the paired chromosomes. There was another very elegant experiment which was performed by Kurt Stern on Drosophila. He discovered that there was a variety of Drosophila where, as you know, it has a X and Y chromosome, it is also a heterogenic one. So, the male, and it was the Y chromosome had a portion which was broken off, and this broken off fragment had actually become attached to end of one of the X chromosomes. Now, this was a very peculiar situation, and he also described another variety of Drosophila where one of the X chromosomes was itself broken. So, that means there were two situations. One chromosome, that is Y, was broken, and this fragment got attached to X, making X a bit longer, and another situation where one of the X chromosomes was shorter than usual. So, that means normally we find that if we were to cross such Drosophila flies, then they have different types of eyes. The red eyes being dominant, and there another, the mutant genes, where we find that there are darkish red eyes, they are called as carnations. And then the nature of the eyes is also different, either they could be normal, that is round, or they could be very narrow bar shaped, and in that case they would be called as the narrow bar eyes. So, that means the female fly is XX, as you know, the male is XY in case of Drosophila, and these particular eyes and the color and the nature of eyes was taken into consideration. So, when we saw this experiment, you would really be excited how Kurt Stern manipulated the breakage of one of the X chromosomes in a female by X-ray irradiation or by other means. So when he did that, the one of the X chromosomes was broken into two by these X-rays, and it contained the mutant genes of carnation and of capital B. So that means these different types of situations you can see on your screens, that is one of the X chromosomes having a portion of Y and one of the Y chromosomes broken and being shorter. So when a cross was made, and this particular cross was later test cross, it was found that 4 types of gametes were got from the carnation barred female, which was a mutant one, and out of these 4, the 2 were crossovers and the 2 were non-crossovers. So that means the 2 non-crossovers would be the ones where there is no interchange between the homologous segments. And when these were mated with XY, that is the male, which was having a carnation round eyes, that is CAR plus, and non-crossovers, then some very interesting results, or 4 types of results were got, which were 2 crossovers with X and 2 non-crossovers with X. So this clearly proved that whenever there is meiosis, there is some sort of an exchange between the fragments in the chromatids, and this can naturally be brought about by nothing else than breakage and the reunion or rejoining of the fragments. So that means this was a cytological basis of crossing over, which was now established as a result of Crichton and McClintock's experiments, and later corroborated by Stern's experiment. So that means there is actually a physical exchange. So what are the factors which may be affecting the process of crossing over? Because if there is a breakage, that means there has to be various genetical aspects, physiological aspects, even many environmental factors which are going to affect the frequency of crossing over. Either they could be promoters or they could be suppressors, and the percentage of crossing over would be variable between the 2 loci. Very interesting aspect came to light, and that is the sex of an individual actually influences the frequency of crossovers. This was clearly seen in Drosophila males. It was, if you remember viewers, in talking about complete linkage in Drosophila, I had mentioned earlier that male Drosophila does not show crossing over at all. So that means when there is no crossing over, then it is a case of complete linkage. So that means overall it is seen that there is a tendency of reduction of crossing over even in male mammals. And in silk moths, that is in Bombax murai, crossing over does not take place in females at all. So that means the sex of an individual sometimes has a bearing on the frequency of recombination. X-rays are another very important factor. They are going to bring about definite amount of crossing over in male Drosophila, as has been seen in various types of experiments. But in general, if we were to summarize, we would say that the heterogametic cell, now the heterogametic sex in Drosophila is the same as ours, because the male is XY and the female is XX. So these heterogametic individuals, they show comparatively lower crossing over frequencies than do the homogametic sex, that is the females in Drosophila as well as in human beings. Mutation is another very important factor, because the gene mutation would affect the frequency of crossing over, and if there is mutation in Drosophila, then we find that the crossing over in the individuals falls down, that is the percentage. This has already been shown by a scientist, Govin. the age is also very important of an individual, which is going to affect the frequency of crossing over. C.B. Bridges found in Drosophila that as a female gets older, the crossing over tends to decrease with age. So, finally, we find that crossing over is between chromatids and not the chromosomes. So, that means in the diagram on your screens, if you find that a chromosome before meiosis or just 2 chromosome stage, if it is crossing, then it would have a ratio which would be very different as compared to the ratio of the 4 chromatid stage. And different types of recombinants would be formed, the parental combinations and the recombinant combinations would now be present in different proportions. In our next lecture, we would now like to quantify the concepts which we have just qualitatively mentioned till now. Now, we will talk about how to determine the recombination frequency, on the basis of which how to construct a map, and then to find out as to what is the location and what is the relative position of genes on a particular chromosome. Viewers, you can look at the bibliography for getting into more details of our lecture. Thank you.